Hey guys, so today I wanted to talk about a phenomenon that I've come across just by working with people with disabilities and kind of the, the misconceptions that come when it comes to things like autism or intellectual disability. So there's often this assumption that people with some kind of developmental disability have the mind of a child, right? And I'm going to argue that there really isn't anything like the mind of a child unless you are literally a child. Um, there are definitely people with disabilities who may act very childish at times, but ultimately they are not children. They have years of experience that children do not. They also have different ways of perceiving the world that children do not. Um, they may, for example, have a better memory than the average child, or especially if they're autistic. A lot of autistic people have better than average long-term memory. But this misconception comes from the fact that IQ is based on cognitive age, and it's technically your cognitive age over your chronological age times 100. Just to make it clear, I'm no expert on IQ. Um, I myself have like a very unbalanced IQ. I think I've talked about this before, which actually is not that unusual for autism. People usually assume that people with autism are either super duper gifted or super duper disabled, and majority of autistic people obviously fall somewhere within that range, and not really towards one extreme or the other. But anyway, I'm no kind of an expert on IQ. I do hope maybe if I become an autism researcher to find a better way of measuring IQ in nonverbal people, because a lot of nonverbal people are assumed to have very low IQs just because they are nonverbal. But once they're given means to express themselves, they usually have normal intelligence. So that's a big misconception. But anyway, back to the topic of mental age. When IQ tests were first developed, they were developed mostly to assess academic ability and sort of how much you know academically compared to other people your age. And this was used to identify gifted people, was used to identify disabled people. However, when you actually go out and meet people with intellectual disabilities, people with lower mental ages than their chronological ages, they do not act like children. A lot of them have jobs. A lot of them can fall in love, get married, even have kids. Obviously, that only goes to a certain extent. People with severe intellectual disabilities can't do any of that. But a lot of people, for example, with Down syndrome, are able to function as adults in society. And they certainly do not have the minds of children. Um, what intellectual disability is not about your mental age, really, other than, by that academic standard. It's about how you process and recall information, just the basics of intelligence. So intelligence does not equal maturity, nor does it equal whether you act like a child or not. Similarly, there are a lot of people without intellectual disabilities or even like borderline low IQs that still behave very childlike, for various reasons. I have come across multiple autistic people who still behave like children, who are adults who still behave like children because of their autism. And obviously autism is different for everyone, so obviously this only applies to a certain subsection of autistic people. I'm not saying that autistic people are like children. That's obviously, I'm not saying that. Anyway, these people have normal or above average IQs, yet their behavior would indicate psychologically that they're their age is not the same as their peers. Now, again, even these people who act childlike for whatever reason don't have the mind of a child because they have cognitive abilities that a child may not have. They have years of experience that a child doesn't have. And this applies the other way around too. Like when you hear about like these super genius gifted kids, again, those kids aren't ready for adult responsibilities, even though they may have cognitively the mind of an adult. Which again, like what does that even mean? Um, they don't have years of experience that an adult would have. So that was just my quick rambling. Basically, IQ does not equal mental age. It only really equals academic age and where somebody can be placed in school. And even then, there's a lot of factors to consider. For example, I have a borderline gifted IQ. I'm not very proud of it, but I was definitely gifted. I was hyperlexic in school, so I read very early and very comprehensively. But my parents decided not to skip any grades for me because they could see, even though I hadn't been diagnosed with autism yet, that socially I was not keeping up with my peers. And so they wanted to make sure I had a full social experience. And so I wasn't accelerated at all in school, except for math. But that was because there was an acceleration program there already set in place. My parents didn't step in to make any exceptions to accelerate me. And again, I'm not an expert. I'm not even that smart myself, but I hope you guys learned something, at least about my opinion, from this video. And thanks for watching.